This man became world famous after he inherited this house from his grandmother. They always had a special bond that is hard to describe, but once she passed away, she gave him a gift like no other. It started with her own family home, but the big surprise that made him famous was waiting inside. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The cozy little house on Elm Street acting as a safe haven from the storms of his life, where their connection was unique, tied together by threads of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and a common love for pancakes. Since his childhood, he had been his grandmother's shadow, trailing behind her in the kitchen, the garden, and even to the local grocery store. His friends often chided him for choosing his grandmother's company over theirs, but to him, there was no contest. His bond with his grandmother was an alliance forged in shared laughter, stories, and mutual respect, a connection that nothing else could surpass. His grandmother, Martha, was a resilient woman. She had lost her husband at a young age and never remarried. She lived through the world's ups and downs alone, but she never let her spirit be clouded by her circumstances. Her home was an extension of her heart, filled with photographs of family, antique furniture, and always suffused with the scent of her homemade pancakes. And Benjamin was always there to make the place lively and bubbly. He was like a son to her. "It is always nice to have such a strong, capable young man around," she always used to say to him. When Benjamin turned 40, however, things began to change. Martha's age caught up with her, and she was moved to a nursing home, and it was a transition difficult for both of them. Benjamin missed the nostalgia of their old house, but he found solace in continuing their daily routine. He began visiting Martha during his lunch breaks at work, just as he used to at school. But now it was in her small room at the nursing home. There were no chores to be done here, but that freed up valuable time. Together they would solve crossword puzzles, talk about the daily happenings in the world, and occasionally they would reminisce about their times in Martha's house. These meetings became a piece of continuity in the unpredictable swirl of life. But time, as it often does, took its toll. Martha passed away in her sleep one night, leaving Benjamin grappling with a world where his compass was no more. His heart was heavy as he delivered her eulogy, every word a testament to her strength, her kindness, and the profound impact she had on him. With the setting sun casting long shadows around him, Benjamin walked away from the chapel, his heart heavy with the loss of the woman who had been his beacon. His grandmother was gone. His best friend was gone. Life seemed to have come to a standstill. Benjamin knew he had to honor his grandmother. With a final glance at the chapel, Benjamin stepped into the gathering darkness, not knowing what awaited him, his heart echoing with his grandmother's words. They were friendly and wise, just like she was. "Remember, my dear, life is not about how many times you fall, but how many times you get up. It's okay to grieve, it's okay to feel lost, but it's also okay to find happiness again." These were comforting words to Benjamin. Well, his grandma always knew what to say. But to his surprise, these were not the last words she would have for him. Back at his home, he found the unexpected letter from Martha. His heart pounded in his chest as he recognized her handwriting. Benjamin's fingers traced over the aged paper, each line of her handwriting familiar and comforting. It was her. She was here, reaching out to him even in death. The sight of it conjured up 1,000 memories, and he found himself choking back tears. Upon reading without wasting any time, he drove to the city center, his heart beating a tattoo of anticipation and curiosity. It was a professional-looking building. A professional-looking name was etched in the window, its golden letters catching the sun's rays and reflecting them onto the polished wooden door. It read Hartrow Associates. Benjamin's curiosity was piqued. Yenien Vistragri. What did a lawyer's office have to do with his grandmother's final gift? Did she leave him something? And was it this important that a lawyer had to be involved? He rang the doorbell and was promptly greeted by a kindly secretary. She ushered him into a luxurious office with a large bookcase lining one walls. He was told to wait for a Mr. Hartrow. While waiting, Benjamin sank into the brown leather Chesterfield, his gaze roaming the room. His eyes settled on the bookcase, filled with a multitude of books that seemed as diverse as the people in the city outside. It reminded him of his grandmother's own collection back at the house, spanning across genres and languages. Suddenly, a tall man entered the room, his sharp gaze softened by a gentle smile. "Mr. Benjamin, I presume," he said, extending a hand. Benjamin nodded and accepted the handshake. Mr. Hartrow, an old associate of Martha's, conveyed his condolences before getting to the heart of the matter. Martha had left Benjamin something more than memories, something tangible, something he would love for the rest of his life. Mr. Hartrow presented him with an old key, explaining that Martha had left her house to him. Benjamin was shocked. Martha's house, their sanctuary, now belonged to him. He felt a knot of emotion building in his throat. When he arrived at the house, the key felt heavy in his hand. The house stood just as he remembered it, but now it was his. It was not just a house, it was an inheritance of memories, of love, and of life. With a deep breath, he unlocked the front door, stepping inside the house, which still smelled like Martha. It was warm, inviting, the same as he remembered. It was like she had never left. Each item in that house held a story, a testament to their shared life, and now Benjamin was the keeper of these tales. The dusty rooms, the unwashed dishes, the faded photographs were all preserved in a timeless bubble, awaiting their storyteller. But the biggest surprise awaited him in Martha's bedroom. Upon reaching the room, he hesitated, his hand resting on the doorknob. This was Martha's most personal space, her sanctuary, and Benjamin felt like an intruder. Another envelope with his name on it. Picking up the letter, his fingers trembled slightly. He opened the envelope and began to read. The letter was full of love, kindness, and an unexpected revelation. Martha had one final surprise in store for him, a surprise that had to do with her long-lost partner, her husband, whom she had lost when she was 24 years old. The man she never stopped loving, despite the passing of time. Martha's husband had been a very wealthy man who, despite his wealth, had lived a humble life. The man had left everything he had to his one true love, Martha, and Martha's purest love after her husband was Benjamin. And so, as an expression of this love, one of the last lines of her will was, "Honey, check your bank account." Reading the words, Benjamin's heart started to beat faster. He couldn't comprehend what he was reading. It was Martha saying what he thought she was saying. He quickly pulled out his phone and logged into his bank account. His heart stopped. The number on the screen seemed impossible. He was a millionaire. The money shocked him, but his grandmother, the woman who lived a life of simplicity, had left him a fortune. Benjamin was stunned. This was a life-altering revelation. A man who was used to living a simple life was suddenly rich. After recovering from the shock, he made a decision. He would use this newfound wealth to carry on Martha's legacy. She had been a pillar of strength and kindness in the community, always there to lend a helping hand to anyone in need. Benjamin would do the same. He would use a part of the money to restore her house in full glory. He sold his own house and started living there, and the rest of the money he donated to the poor and underprivileged children of the city. The ones that did not have such a lovely grandma like he did to always look after them. It still was a large sum, and with this money, poor kids could finally have a birthday party or participate in after-school sports. The story of Benjamin's philanthropy quickly spread through the town. He established the Martha Scholarship for underprivileged students, paying for their education, and set up a food pantry for those in need. Each time he handed out a scholarship or a meal, he could almost hear Martha's voice murmuring in satisfaction. He regularly held community events, pancake breakfasts in honor of his grandmother. He himself spent his days maintaining the house on Elm Street, keeping alive the memories of his grandmother and their shared times. It was a sanctuary for him, filled with love, kindness, and memories that warmed his heart. The house itself stood as a symbol of Martha's enduring love and generosity, and the fact that he could live there was enough for him. In donating the money, Benjamin became more than just a wealthy man, he became a source of inspiration for the whole town. He lived his life as a testament to his grandmother's values and teachings. He showed everyone that wealth doesn't define a person, but how they use it does. And Benjamin used his newfound fortune in a way that would make any grandmother proud, especially Martha. To Benjamin, seeing the smiles on the children's faces, hearing the gratitude from the families he helped, and knowing that he was helping change lives for the better was enough. It was a way to honor his grandmother's legacy, and it gave him more joy than any amount of wealth could provide. Martha's spirit lived on in the countless lives he touched with her generosity.